another few hours, my father gets injured. His right hand is badly wounded. He gets some bullets on his chest. All the other companies have not succeeded. So CO says, Hamir, where are you? Hamir says, I've captured. He's in India. He couldn't believe it. Fire a very light. So he had to fire that very light. Now when you fire a very light, the enemy says, ye to hamara nahi hai. So obviously so his position is absolutely known by the enemy. So all the artillery fire is being pumped onto him. So that's the time that he got captured. The last that the people saw in the battle is him wounded, blooding, this, that, firing. So the information went that he's nobody. So the impression went across that he's a commando. And because they thought he's a commando, he was always kept alone. And for a very long time, when you are alone and you're not declared, you can be knocked off anytime. But whenever he's transported from one place to the other, and the civilian came, the civilian crowd, they would say, Acha, Indian hai, they would spit at him and throw. And one of the guys, he saw my dad, and he had also served my grandfather in the World War. Tears started coming from his eyes. So he became very fond of my father, and he would get him fruits and he would get him newspapers. And
everyone knows that India carved out Bangladesh out of East Pakistan. What do you think is happening exactly right now in Bangladesh?
The whole thing started with the reservations that the government had laid down, and the reservations were almost 56%, because by the time you're talking about 2024, so we're talking about the grandchildren looking for jobs in government establishments, leading to anguish, fights, etc. In terms of geography, we are such a huge country that all our neighbors would have that feeling that we are the big brother doing well, and we are naturally blessed as a country that we have all the things we need. There would definitely be reasons for people to look at us and maybe get upset about if we're doing well.
What about the trust factor?
What is the technique of an infantryman going through the minefield? Very simple. You go in a line and you walk through it. So when you're walking through, the first guy gets killed, you go next, next guy goes. So you're leading a guy to his death, So how will he trust you unless you work through it? So you work through it. You work day and night from the day that you. And
what is the emotion in the family?
पहले तो communication था नहीं, letters ही होते थे, in those days. Today's world is even more difficult. Your wife is hoping like hell पे call untoward time पे call आए ना. It's a tough life for the children and for the ladies. See, in the army there's one unwritten rule. जो भी time आपके पास family के साथ है, enjoy it.
1971, the year we all remember. And why? The reason behind this is the war that we had with Pakistan. We all remember that in 1971, India carved out Bangladesh from East Pakistan. While the war was flaring on our eastern sector, there were battles happening at our western sector as well. One such battle was the Battle of Daruchhian. And in this episode, Major General Vijay Singh speaks about this particular battle and what happened with his father, Brigadier Hamir Singh ji, in this particular battle. Battle of Daruchian was one of those battles which India lost, unfortunately. But this battle was fought heroically, and Major General Vijay Singh's father, Brigadier Hamir Singh, was a part of this battle. What exactly happened that India lost this battle? This is that story. And also, Brigadier Hamir Singh ji became a prisoner of war in Pakistan after this battle. What happened with him exactly in Pakistan as a prisoner of war? This is that story. There are very few stories that actually touch you, and this is one such story of valor and courage. If you're someone who doesn't know about the war of 1971, this podcast will give you an idea about that as well. This story is not common because you don't get to hear about prisoner of wars and what happens with them when they are on the other side of the border. This story will shake you. This story will motivate you. So without any further ado, let's start this podcast in 3, 2, 1. Major General Vijay Singh, sir, you're welcome on this podcast.
Thank you very much.
I have been looking forward to this particular podcast for a very specific reason. That is the book that you have, the book that you have written, which is Prisoners of War 1971. This is the story of Brigadier Hamir Singh and what happened in 1971, especially during the Battle of Daruchian. A lot of people still don't know about this battle. I was one of them. I got to know about it when I first saw your book. And a lot of people have crazy theories about this one battle, what might have happened over there. But then because your father came back and we were just discussing how he was debriefed and the story that he gave, based on that, he also got gallantry awards. So we'll be discussing all of that in this podcast. So firstly, welcome on the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. My first podcast. So for me, it's a new experience and I look forward to enjoying it.
Right. So right now, I mean, in 1971, everyone knows that India carved out Bangladesh out of East Pakistan and we had a huge role to play over there. I was recently speaking with Major General J.D. Bakshi sir. I was speaking with Major General Ian Cardozo sir as well. And for them, it has come a full circle. And I'm sure this would be the same case for everyone who was part of the 1971 war, because they were in a way responsible for creating that country, and today it has gone back into the laps of, let's say, Pakistan or China for that matter. What do you think is happening exactly right now in Bangladesh, and what are the reasons behind that majorly?
See, firstly, I'll just differ with you in my perception of how a soldier feels about this. See, when the soldier's fighting a battle, he's fighting a battle as given directions by his bosses. And at that moment of time, that is his only concern. So when he's fighting a battle, he's fighting for his country. So I don't think that they were too bothered about Bangladesh. They were fighting a battle and they said they have to fight the battle. Now, what battle they were fighting for whom, that was definitely at the background. But they were fighting for that, for our country in that particular case. So even now, I don't think, at least in if I talk about myself, my father's case, I don't think he really bothers about what's happening in Bangladesh. He fought a war, he did his job. Baki, what is going to happen in Bangladesh, that really doesn't concern him too much as a soldier. But yes, as a person belonging to India, things definitely affect us.
Right.
And I think as far as Indians are concerned, or as far as the country is concerned, we would love to have peace on our neighborhood, because if everyone does well, if everyone succeeds in whatever they're doing, it only augurs well for the entire region. So as far as Bangladesh is concerned, I think we all look forward to it settling down. But currently, a lot of things possibly which I would say germinated right from their independence, I would say 71, is essentially because of a little bit of a fractured society at that point of time, and not being able to have a stable sort of, birth because of the interference of a quick assassination of that time, Mujibur Rahman. I think that sort of stability didn't come about. And when a society is fractured, a little spark here and there can really affect a situation. It is my belief that when it comes down to human beings, it is our core, I would say, very simple, things like food, khana, pani, which make a difference in our lives. So if you take the example of Bangladesh, in 24, I feel that the sparks, whatever being, you just needed a spark. But you're aware of the issue of, like I was mentioning, basic instincts, food, and all these factors of financial, being comfortable that way. Everyone looks for a government job. And if you recollect, the whole thing started with the reservations that the government had laid down. And the reservations were almost 56% reservations for government jobs were given to various categories. And a large portion of that, 30% of that, was given to people who were sons, or I would say belonging to families who had taken part in their freedom struggle.
Yeah.
Now, which actually essentially means, because by the time you're talking about 2024, 71, 24, almost 50, 51 years have passed. So we're talking about the grandchildren looking for jobs in government establishments. So that spark was lit by this unhappiness about 56% reservation in government jobs. And once that happened, it slowly precipitated into, the word Razakar in Bangladesh is a very sensitive word.
Correct.
And in whatever was happening, ultimately, some comments made by that time, the Prime Minister referred to the word Razakar, and that really further resulted in further problems, leading to anguish, fights, etc. And like I said, any spark is enough in a fractured society to create chaos. And then you can keep talking about deep state and this thing, which you have already had podcasts earlier. So if a deep state can only succeed if there are some fractures in society, and that can only happen if there are little things like, people not forgetting about talking about the Razakars, or someone's basic issues of food, shelter and all coming, the economics coming. So all these factors have led to what it is today. I mean, you can keep saying whatever you want, but the basic factor is how was a person affected is by his living standards. That would be in food, house, etc. And that is something which, if you ask, I'm sure if you ask Bangladeshis, a large number of them are not really too bothered about the politics about it, but they're more concerned about their daily lives.
Right.
So I think all these factors have resulted in what's there today. And it's sad, unfortunate. I only hope that things get better.
Yeah. But in the Indian Army and the RNDW, it played a huge role in that war. And we we actually trained the Mukti Bahini. And those are the children for whom the reservations were given. And today, when we look at Bangladesh, there seems to be an anti-India sentiment. Now, when you spoke to your father or others who took part in the war of 1971, did they ever tell you that the locals over there who were facing atrocities from the Pakistani army, they felt anti-India sentiments even at that point?
No, not really. The thing is that my father was fighting on the Western Front.
Right. He was towards Jammu and Kashmir.
To that side. So he hardly came across Bangladeshis. But yes, there was the only person he met was one other, I would say, compounders type of nursing assistants, what we call nursing assistants in the army, compounders, who basically give the injections and other things. There was one Bengali person who used to look after my father. So he was very friendly. And in fact, he never had any issue that time. And I think that time there was no anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh at all at that point of time. We were all, together for that. So there was no such, and that person who was treating my father, he himself looked after him very well. And in fact, he is the one who told him ultimately that the war is finished, because my father didn't know that the war had finished. So he told him, sir, the war is finished, and I really don't know why my father was being kept in isolation. So he said, I don't know why you're being kept in isolation.
Right.
All the other officers are together, they're, getting papers, newspaper, radio, आप अकेले बैठे हैं यहाँ पर. ऐसा क्यों है मुझे पता नहीं है. But ये बात है, and the war has ended. So my father was quite surprised that the war ended. So his relationship with him was very good. So I don't think there was an anti-India sentiment, but this is the problem of geography. In terms of geography, we are such a huge country that all our neighbors would have that feeling that we are the big brother. And, when someone is doing well, and we are naturally blessed as a country, that we have all the things we need in the country are there. All types of terrain, all types of goods can be made. Water is adequate. We have a good population. We have everything. Relative peace. Blessed by nature. So there would definitely be reasons for people to look at us and maybe get upset about if we're doing well. It's a natural tendency in human life, and we are a bigger brother. So sometimes perhaps the bigger brother will always have to be a little more generous to it's unfortunate. That's the way it is. It's geography. We can't really do anything about it. So geography, economics, these two things we are doing well. And if the country is doing well, definitely it would be the synergy of all eyes. And there could be, petty things that. But I don't think in 71 per se, there were any such, issues that way.
Could you give the background to the 1971 war, in particular to where your father was fighting? Because the whole country knows that in 1971, the Indian Army was present on our eastern borders, and they were entering into then East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. But very few people know that there was a battle actually going on towards our western borders as well. So can you give that context? Like, what was happening exactly?
See, what was happening is that when the battle was taking place in the east, the main concern for us was that he should not be able to move any forces from the west to the east. Because if you move forces from the west to east, that would give him that much more strength. And he was pretty badly off there because we were surrounding him in terms of land and the sea. We were able to cut him off from the sea. There was our ships had come very close to the border, and we wouldn't let them come nearby. They couldn't fly over India. So it became a big problem for them to fight with whatever. So whatever was there was there. They couldn't expect to get much more. And to ensure that nothing more comes, we had to ensure that the Western army is engaged. So in the western side of the border, it was only meant to keep them, to hold them, not let them move from there. And in that holding action, whatever little successes you could have, because there was, issues, 65 war के बाद कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो we thought कि इन्हें capture करने से हमारी strength बढ़ जाएगी. So you're looking for those tactical features and all that, which we can prevent, maybe make your position better. In mountains, it all comes down to having a higher,
Right.
position vis-a-vis them, or if there's a strategically important road, that road which is connecting Poonch, Rajouri, Poonch, and then going towards, if you go towards the valley, if you could get any of those passes, Banyal Pass and all that, if you could, any of the passes which are there, you could get those passes, you could, it could become a problem for the enemy or for us. So all those passes which are important had to be held, and to capture those, or to keep those passes safe, if we meant going across the border and capturing some heights, that was resorted to. It was just those little bit of battles, minor battles, to hold the enemy and not let him shift anything to other side.
Okay.
Probably the Pakis at that time felt that we will not go whole hog on the western front, but when it was required, there was no hesitation in going, and there were pitched battles taken place all over the place, like Basantar, and there were many battles which took place. So although the aim was just to hold them, but it on the ground it's very difficult to legislate कि इतना करना है, इतने से ज़्यादा नहीं करना है. Once the battle starts, how it will end, one really can't predict. So it started off with many petty battles, trying to improve our defensive positions, but then it became a little bigger than that. So west was not the main area. The battle was the east, but west, many battles took place, developed from initial skirmishes, improving our defensive postures. That's it.
So basically, west was to just hold them.
Essentially hold them and improve your positions.
Yeah.
So towards that end, this is the battle which I've talked about this book.
Yeah, the Battle of Daruchian.
So there were many battles. This is one of the battles there, and this feature, this Daruchian, is actually a very innocuous small feature. But if it is in a strategic position.
Can you describe the geography of that place?
I'll tell you. See, basically, Poonch Rajouri, उनके west में, there's a point which is called, there's a place called Sarol, which is when you're going from Rajouri towards Poonch, it is just on the road itself. And if you go to Sarol and you go beyond, there's some posts there along that border.
Yeah.
And then there's the ceasefire. That time they used to call it ceasefire line. Now it's a LC.
Yeah.
There's this important road which for Pakistan, there's a place from Kotli to a place called Tata Pani and Hazira. That road, that actually goes along, there's a Poonch River. The Poonch River is a tributary of Jhelum. So the water comes down from Poonch River, comes down along the north to south almost. And uske east mein is the road. Uske east mein there are the features. Features means the hills, I would say. So Daruchian was one such feature. So on the west of it was the river coming down. And on the north, there's the Mendar River. Mendar is another place in J&K, in that same area. So Mendar River joins with the Poonch River. And that junction is where the Daruchian is. So this feature, if you are able to hold this feature, you're able to interfere in the road which is connecting the Kotli to Hazira. You're able to dominate that area, and that can have an effect in the defenses of Poonch.
Okay.
So by capturing that, you could perhaps make your defenses around Poonch stronger. So that was felt that this is a feature which one should capture. So that's how it had its tactical significance.
And Pakistan had the heights.
The feature is for Pakistan. The Daruchian feature is, as you come down from, there's a feature called 0.471. This is the height. You come down that feature, you'll come across the line of control, which goes along, say, small nalas. Then you go up. So when you cross the nala and you go up, you start coming to Pakistan. So Daruchian feature is wholly in Pakistan. It was totally in Pakistan. So it was felt that let's capture this feature. So that is an important feature in the overall defenses of that area. Also, dominating that road. And therefore, it was tactically significant.
Right. So now, when the battle started for Daruchian, what was exactly happening? What did your father tell you? Like, what were the plans, and how was the Indian Army supposed to capture that feature?
Yeah, you see, what actually happened was this particular battalion was initially given the task of being a reserve in that entire sector. So what does a reserve battalion do? A reserve battalion is kept together with the aim that wherever there's a weakness in the defenses, you can use it. Now the defenses could be of area of 70, 80 kilometers. So which means that you should be well versed with that entire 80 kilometers. So what will happen is that you will go every few kilometers, see the area, study it, make plans for everything. So you keep doing that in the entire area. That was the initial task. And suddenly, for whatever reasons, just a few days before the war, they were told, now we want you to capture this. So they were actually firstly spread out all over the place. From them, they have to come back to one place, that is 471. 47 से आपको attack launch करना है. So that means you're coming from everywhere, coming to a central place. So far, you're prepared for defenses because you're a reserve battalion. Now you want to attack. Anything which you go, no matter how much training you have, you need to rehearse it. So rehearsal means, एक दो दिन rehearsal करो आप, you recce that area properly, go inside, look at the areas of where I'll attack from this place, this is where I'll position my forces, this is where my guns will fire from. So you do all that sort of, which requires, normally they would say at least 2 to 3 nights. But these guys were not even given, they were given one night. So they were said, you please come here, concentrate. And before the battalions were concentrating, the officers were called and they were given a plan.
Yeah.
Now, that plan was extremely unconventional. Now, what happens is that there are many plans, and people have many plans. You discuss many plans, and before the war, these plans were discussed in detail, and then you make your plans. So, such a plan was actually, this plan of Colonel Indrajit was made about a couple of months before and presented to the General Officer Commanding. General Kundan Singh used to be the GOC of 25 at that time. He said, this is not correct. This plan is very dangerous. I'll tell you why it's dangerous, but don't do this because this is going to result in casualties. Now, the thing about these unconventional plans is that if they work, it's a fantastic thing. People will really give you kudos because you can, with minimum casualties, succeed. So it can be done. And it has been done. Always in war, there have been many cases where unconventional plans take place. But when you're making unconventional plans, you need to think through what is going to happen. And you've also got to listen to the advice of people. So first advice given by General Kundan Singh is, he didn't like it. He was upset that, this chap is, and it was a plan in front of the entire division, a lot of officers. So it's embarrassing to you that, my plan is being tokoed by someone. And it's an embarrassment to my competency. I didn't like it. I don't blame him. I mean, obviously everyone has an ego. So why was it unconventional? Because he was attacking from all 4 directions.
Right.
You have a conical feature. You attack north, south, east, west.
Simultaneously?
Now, वो भी चलता है. Why a lot of places succeed, and it's happened today. In almost all operations, you want to do multi-directional. But you need to train for it. And you have to cater for the contingencies. Now, अभी क्या है कि आप एक mountain पे जा रहे हैं. The distances in mountains is more in terms of how much time it takes to travel, right? So you're going north, east, south, west. 4 directions जा रहे हैं. Now, can you imagine when you're going up the same direction? It's night. Attacks at night. And if you don't control your fire, you're going to fire into each other.
Right.
Because how do you identify? And I'm talking about 70s where it was even more difficult. Technology hadn't really gone that way. So you have to be very sure you're firing into each other. Okay, that's one. Second thing is, in the night, and you're firing, like I'm at 47. I'm 47 when you are sitting at Daruchian. So I'm going to fire my guns from here. So I'm going to fire my guns on top of your, let's say your head is 471. So when I'm firing mountains, rounds will go behind me also.
Sure.
Because some rounds will hit your head, some will go behind, some will come in front. So now there's someone attacking from behind also. So your own rounds are going to go over your head and it'll probably hit your own guys. So there's going to be casualties. So you have to be very careful. Second problem. Third problem is in the infantry per se, in any war, whenever you are sending a battalion attack, I would say a majority of battalions, let's say you got 4 companies, you're sending 2 companies. The commanding officer has to be there. He has to be next to the leading companies. And if you see all the great generals of war, Rommel, Montgomery, they were always ahead with the troops. Why? because one is that you are getting the feel on ground. Go back to 70s. I'm not talking about today, battlefield transparency. You can see exactly who's where now. In those days, you couldn't see anything.
Sure.
So if you're sitting where he was sitting for the battle, was almost, I would say, you could not see the battle. It's night time, no sights. You're only hearing the radio sets. Your transparency of the battle is only through radio sets. It cannot happen. You have to be exactly behind your troops. So you know that, okay, ye success nahi ho raha, so let's do this. You can quickly change plans. You can't do that sitting, way behind in the border. Another problem. And the biggest, I would say, flaw in the entire plan is where is the reserve? Because if things succeed, nothing like success. But if any of the four prongs fails, so who's going to be the person to support that guy who's losing? Anyone, suppose the guy on the left has to help the guy on the right. It means a traveling movement of 3 to 4 hours. You can't really succeed. Therefore, the division had given them one more battalion, one more company of Gurkhas as a reserve. So that company which is reserve should also have been in the battle. That also was kept with the CO behind. So वहाँ से आने में impossible था. So all these were the flaws in this plan. But like I said, if it succeeded, nothing like success. But unfortunately, didn't succeed because of bad luck, I would say, to some extent, or whatever. I can tell you what the reasons were, but
sure,
they were unfortunate. And when this such plans, you can't expect luck to take you beyond a point, because here in battle, bad luck could result in great deaths. The number of people who have died in the Battle of Daruchian, 10 officers, 7 JCOs, and almost 149 people have either died, injured, or captured, which is perhaps the maximum casualties of the 71 war.
A battalion is 600 people?
Battalion would have approximately, you see, about each company is about 120. 120 into 4 companies. So that would be about 480. And then you would have headquarter companies. So almost, I would say, 800 to 1,000 would be the strength.
And out of that, almost...
The fighting part is about 4 companies. So 120 into 4.
Yeah.
So about 500 guys.
Right.
So out of these 500 guys, it's rarely happened that so many people have died in battle.
So approximately 160 people have died, or more than that?
Not died. I would say died, injured, or captured. And it is an attack. And if you compare this, the battles, you in the beginning you said, you have not heard of Daruchian. You haven't heard of it because it's not a success. Had it been a success, you would have got Paramveer Chakras. There would have been people like Arun Khetrapal or Hoshiar Singh and all those guys, because they fought, they attacked, and they won. Most of the times that we have lost in battle, see, the gallantry awards which have been given in losing battles has invariably been defensive battles. Not Hoshiar Singh, I would say Major Shaitan Singh, Kumaon, overwhelmed, last man, last round. So all defensive battles. But in an attacking battle, if you have lost, there have been very rare cases where people have got awards. This is one of the rare cases. And this also wouldn't have happened unless, like I told you, because we were discussing, I don't think we were recording that time.
We'll come to that.
Yeah, we'll come to that. So in an attacking battle, a bad battle, see, battles are either won or lost. But whether you win or whether you lose, there's someone doing a really good job. He's fighting really hard. And it is unfortunate that you can't, recognize everyone. I mean, obviously you can't give awards to everyone. An award doesn't really mean it doesn't mean that he's the only guy who fought. There are many other guys who fought well. But in a losing battle, in attack, it becomes extremely difficult to, no one takes it very kindly. The only way, I tried to read through history. The Crimean War is probably the only war which I could find where it's a famous, you must have read this Charge of Light Brigade and all that, that Battle of Balaklava, where these people rushed into the valley and all died. And there were, if you compare the casualties, what took place in that battle with Daruchian, they're almost similar. But they got a lot of Victoria Crosses, etc. But it is hard to recognize it. It is something which is probably not many takers for losing battles in attacks. That's the sad part of thing.
But then you gave 4 reasons why this plan was dangerous. Why did we exactly fail? Because one thing is that you make your plans, you do everything that you can, but while you're on ground, what exactly changes according to the situations? And probably that also makes or breaks the situation for you. So what was happening over there?
So in this particular case, it was a series of, I would say, bad luck. The company which was to start was the frontal company. Like if you are, let's say you are 471, I am here, I am on a height here, I am sitting on a height, this is Daruchian in the middle, Daruchian, you are Daruchian, and I come down and start going up. So this is the most obvious approach. Everyone knows that मेरे को यहाँ से आपके पास आना है तो सबसे easy है नीचे जाऊँगा और ऊपर आऊँगा. That becomes the most obvious approach. So the most obvious approach obviously is the most well protected approach, and therefore you would have a large number of minefields and other things because you have to. It's all dense jungles. Even if you move in the night 10 meters left or right and do it silently, you will not be able to see a person. So you know that if he comes, the only way I can get him is by getting some sound or some explosion taking place. So you have these minefields which are placed right ahead of you. So the most obvious approach is generally the most well protected. And you will have your weapons already facing that direction on fixed lines because night vision devices थे नहीं उस time पे. So you know कि ये likely है तो जैसे आएगा I will just open up randomly. And they cover those areas where you expect him to come. So that was the most obvious approach. And that approach was by one company. Let's say that it was Bravo company and there was Major Chahal was the one leading that company. That was the first one. Second one on the left and right. And the one coming from the rear is my father's company. So my father's company means that when you're going infiltrating and getting behind the enemy, because you expect that the enemy would not expect someone to come from behind.
Yeah.
So that is the least, like I'm saying the most obvious is front, least expected is rear.
Right.
So what happens in the rear, normally you put a very little force. Just a छोटा नाम के लिए force कि अगर कोई आया तो पता लग गया तो हम will build up. It's a surprise. So yeah. You know that. So you're not really too bothered about it. You know that पीछे से आना मुश्किल. And it is tough because you have to go silently across the thing, go almost 10-12 kilometers in the mountains. And when you're going for battle, you're not going like, walking with nothing. You're carrying your whole loads on your back. And to go silently through this area and get back without the enemy knowing is difficult. So that guy is the guy who goes first. So my father's battalion, father's company, which was, he was commanding a Muslim company. So that Muslim company, Charlie company of 14 grenadiers, they started off earliest. Last night, 6:30, start kar diya. And they were to go back and reach the position by about midnight. And when they reached there, only when they reached there will the battle start. Why? Because they were behind the artillery fire. So they must get into cover. So that when the firing to support the most obvious approach starts, they are well protected. So they started off and to be reaching there by 11. Second company to go was Major Chahal's company. Now when this company started going down, firstly, you have to go through your own minefields because on your side of the fire, you have your own minefield. Now, no matter how much practice you do, these guys were going through a defended area of a Mahar battalion. That is the local battalion there. So they are coming, like I told you, they were a reserve battalion. So they were coming from all different places and they were to go through the minefield through a guide of Mahar. Now that Mahar guy knows the thing backwards. But now he knows that the whole battalion is going to go through the mine. So a degree of nervousness comes. You're worried कि कुछ भी होगा तो...
Right, he'll be responsible.
And so no matter how many times that guy had gone through it, he got pretty nervous. And it normally should have taken 15-20 minutes, 30 minutes. It took almost an hour and a half to cross it. So पहली बात तो ये delay हो गया. And they're all in a line. वो भी ठीक है. You can delay the plan by a little bit. So they went there, and my father's company went around. This particular company, which was to go on the most likely approach, Major Chahal's company, they were going down now. They were going down. And when they started getting close, and they did quite a good job, the first point that they had to go was a place called Neck, which is connecting, when you're going upwards towards the height, it was a middle area, Neck, and Neck के बाद फिर ऊपर जाके was the top of this place. So they reached Neck, no problems. They almost reached the top. In the sense, they were about 100, 200 meters yard, and one or two guys got into the minefield. The moment the minefield went, the enemy knew that this is the man, so they let hell break loose. When that hell broke loose, firstly, Jail himself, unka leg ud gaya, and he was bleeding, and really bleeding badly, and he was of course taken from there to enemy. जो enemy के final defenses का उसमें एक खाली shelter था उसमें चले गए.
Right.
He kept bleeding, man. So the surprise was lost here. So within the beginning of the battle, supplies are lost. वो भी ठीक था. Now the next company which has come from the right side, when the company was going from that side, like I told you that these people the enemy knows that these are likely areas, so they always have fixed lines kept there. And once they knew the battle started, they said they might come from here also, they started firing randomly. And in that random thing, that officer also got hit on his chest. So that Major Dogra was the second guy who went. And unko rescue karne ke chakkar mein, trying to rescue him, put him to a safer place, another two guys lost. So the command and control element of that company also went. This company had also lost. And now the next company which had to come was from the left side. A similar incident, that also died. So a series of bad lucks. By the time the battle actually had to start, almost the entire, the CEO's main control elements, the company commanders and all, unfortunately, they died. And now the only person left was from the rear. That's my father. And so that's how ultimately a series of bad luck resulted in this unfortunate thing. And of course, when the going got tough, unfortunately, the CEO was not there. He was far behind. There was no reserve. There were a number of casualties because of own fire. So all those coordination problems actually took place. So it is just a series of bad luck which took place. And although people did the best, like the person I was saying from the left who was going, Major Khan, he had already won a Veer Chakra before the battle. First 2-3 days of the battle only had won a Veer Chakra. And normally what they say is that, when you win one award, you don't send a guy again the second time because he's already taken a big chance. When you're getting an award, you've taken a big risk. So in many countries that if your guy has got a award, they don't send him again. They say, no, you please stay back. But this guy volunteered and he went again. And unfortunately, he also, once the surprise is lost, in the night, actually
Everything
there's
is
chaos.
gone then. Yeah.
So the only person, and they didn't know, is the person behind. So the only person who could reach, somewhere, the only little success they could have was in that company coming from the rear.
Whose mistake was it really? I mean, was it just bad planning, or was it more about the bad lucks that happened on the way?
No, I won't say it's. I won't really categorize it as a bad planning. I would say it was unconventional planning. So when you're making an unconventional plan, you need to be very sure as to what can happen. And are you willing to take the risk? Because if it fails, you're talking about lives. Right. It's not something, ki hara jeeta and, it's a bet or something. You're losing lives. So you have to be very careful. And given the situation that they were coming from a different place and being launched there, one should have been a little more careful, I feel. So, and the second thing is, I have no reason to be away from battle. I mean, as a commanding officer, I should be there.
But why wasn't he there?
It is his plan. I mean, whatever. I really can't question him. Okay. It was his plan.
He has never come out with.
No, he has. He has written a book.
Sure,
he's also written a book.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ever mentioned as to why he was there, and why was the reserve with him?
Yeah.
Because if you're launching people, the reserve is placed at a location where he should be moving very fast to react.
Right.
You can't expect reserve. अगर आप reserve इतनी दूर थी कि वो आ ही नहीं पाई, जब उन्होंने actually launch किया तो वो तो आ ही नहीं पाई because they were very far away and they couldn't reach. And in mountains, distances are in hours. I mean, it's not like you can just walk up to a place. And once the battle starts in daytime, you can't really move. So he was far out from the battle. So that I think was the only mistake. Of course, the difficulty you have to be really sure that you can do it. Coordination, being very sure that you don't shoot into each other. How is the artillery going to fire? Where is the reserve going to be? If my supplies gets lost, what do I do? So you've got to think through those. You just, you can hope for success, but you must plan for the worst. So that worst planning perhaps was not done adequately. And like I said, had the not been bad luck, had Jahel's company reached, he was almost there. It's just that it's likely to happen. Getting into a minefield is very likely. So it should have been planned कि ये हो सकता है. अगर ये होगा, what is my option? So that should have been thought. I think he was very optimistic, but didn't cater for what could have gone wrong.
Right.
So that I feel was probably, and even today, like there's a lot of plans have to be in today's battlefield. Plans have to be unconventional, because if you look at let's say you look at the western border, everyone knows where you are. Today you got satellites, you got UAVs, you got such detailed systems. The battlefield is totally transparent. So if you go for the conventional, then you're going to be meeting unlikely to get success. So you have to be unconventional, but you have to plan for it, train for it, and think through your contingencies, because you can never be sure. You could be unlucky. In this case, it was just bad luck, and once it happened, then there's hell to pay for. So that is one part of.
So basically now the three companies which were, let's say, left, center and right. So men over here are either killed or injured. Okay. And your father is left with his company alone, which from the rear. Now we'll continue the story, but I really want to understand from you, because you mentioned that your father was with a Muslim company. Now, this is a war against Pakistan. So I have to ask you this question, because it's a Muslim company and the war is going on against Pakistan. The force over their side is also Muslim. So isn't there any contradictions between these things?
Absolutely not. This is the beauty of the Indian Army. Let me talk about 14 Grenadiers specifically. Alpha Company, Bravo Company, both Rajput companies. One, Major Dogra looking after Alpha Company. Bravo by Chahal, who was a Jat. Charlie is Khan looking after the Dogra Company.
Right.
And fourth is Muslim Company looking after my father Rajput. So when you are in a, I am also from my regiment is also, I am from the Armored Corps. So we have squadrons which are caste based. I have always been in my Jat squadron. So I am more a Jat than a Rajput. You live what your men are. And that is something which actually surprised, like if you see that we talk about later probably in the prisoner of war camp, it was absolutely a shock to the Pakistanis as to how can this happen. There was never a doubt. There was never an occasion, because when it comes down to battles, when it comes down to the lowest level, let's say a company level, okay, you can talk about battalion and below. Battalion, you have battalion as a unit, company subunits, company के नीचे platoon subunits, उसके नीचे sections 10 guys, section has 10 people. Now in the good old days, recruitment was such that those 10 people in a section or 30 people in a platoon were generally from the same place. So now your ijjat was based on that village that you are from, or from that which area you are. Suppose I ran away from battle. The guy will go to, he is always worried, if I don't do well in battle, मेरे घर में जाके बोलेंगे कि वो तो भाग गया था लड़ाई से. So those things is what the guys are really fighting at on ground level. They don't really bother whether I'm Muslim, Jat, Sikh, it just doesn't matter. And our religion is whatever religion it is. And never an iota of doubt. Never in terms of performance. And in fact, the Muslim company did extremely well. They did extremely well in battle. And at one point of time, when they were all captured during this battle, which probably we'll talk about later, when the guy kept asking, the Paki guy kept asking him, what's your name? The first guy said so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. They said, Are Muslim now? Is he faking it or what? I mean, why are everyone calling him Muslim? Then I realized he's actually Muslim. So the only person who was not a Muslim were the officers in that battalion. Baki, they were all Muslim. And they fought fantastically well.
Because, and I ask this question because secularism is something which is like a political thing in India right now. And army is one of those institutions where secularism actually is in place, or I should say that the true meaning of secularism is only in the army. Now, what about the trust factor? Because when you're fighting a war against Pakistan, guys on that side, they are in a way well entrenched in that their whole religious ideology or whatever you want to call that, and you're here fighting with Muslim men. How do you build that trust with your men then? Is it just naturally that comes in because of the institution that Indian Army is?
Nothing, it'll not be fair to say that anything comes naturally. You have to work towards it. So let's say I am in a Muslim company. So I dress up like them, I walk like them, I eat like them. I will do the same thing that they do. I will go to the mosque, I will pray like them. I will learn exactly what they do. I'll read about their scriptures. I will understand about them. I will be as good as them. I'll speak the language. I need to learn the language. If I'm in a Tamil unit, or if I'm in a Gorkha unit, I have to speak the language. So I learn the language. You will not, after some time, make out ki actually hai kya? Am I from North India, South India? I mean, you will not make out, because you have to see. Ultimately, in battle, let's say, what is the way that, of course, things have changed now. But let's say, till about 10, 15 years back, even today, I would say, you're going through a minefield, right? Now I'm going through a minefield. What is the technique of a infantryman going through the minefield? It's very simple. You go in a line and you walk through it. So when you're walking through, the first guy gets killed, he goes next, sixth guy goes. So you are telling a chap, okay, you're leading this 10 guys. So you're leading a guy to his death,
Yeah.
So how will he trust you unless you work through it? So you work through it. You work day and night from the day that you joined. I am myself a 4th generation army officer. My son is the 5th generation, and recently, about a year back, he got commissioned. So he told me, Dad, first 1 month I'm living with my jawans only. I'm really enjoying it, because initially when you go to units, you may be an officer, but you will be living with your men, seeing what they eat, how do they behave, you are living with them, you are doing every single thing with them, and that's how you get up. So the respect and the bonhomie among them is fantastic.
Right.
I mean, you're ordering a person to die.
Yeah.
Who will do it? Unless he's got total faith that you are absolutely with him.
Yeah.
Whether you're religion or whether you're from whichever place, whatever, you have to be very sure that you are with him. So that is something which is unique, and I really can't describe it more than that. You have to be in that you have to wear the shoes to understand how this relation takes place. I am a Rajput. I was in the Jat squadron throughout my life. I couldn't eat meat because Jats will not eat meat. You will not cook non-veg in your thing. So I was a vegetarian. Fine, that's okay. So you live, eat, do whatever. You can go outside when you go to a party, eat whatever you want. But with the men, you behave with them. You are exactly the same. My wife will go to their functions as if she was a Jat's wife. Or my mother would go to the functions as if she was a Muslim's. So that's the way you live.
Beautiful. I wish this happens in the normal civilian society as well. But sadly, okay, that is a different story. But coming back to the story, now what happened when your father was left with his company because he was in the rear? So what happened then?
See, what actually happened is they initially, when the company had gone, they were supposed to be at one place. We call it a roadblock in the army. You're supposed to just go there and sit down there and ambush anyone who's coming to support the battle. So you're behind the enemy. So obviously, if the enemy is being attacked and he's falling short of people, so someone will have to come to reinforce him. So reinforcement पीछे से आते हैं, normally से, side से, पीछे से. So wherever you think is the most likely area, you will put someone to ambush. So this is called a roadblock. So they actually had gone there to as a roadblock. But when they reached there, the situation became grim. Everyone had died. So now they said, okay, you attack. Because the only guy who could, and the side story in this is Chahal, who was the person who was going right in the front, was a college mate of my father. And they were outstanding sportsmen. Both my father and him. My father was an extraordinary sportsman, and Chahal also was. And they were from Birla Science College in Rajasthan. So they had been competing in sports fields, each other, tang khenchna, kabhi koi first aa raha, kabhi second aa raha. So when the battle went badly, the CEO told my father, okay, you come and you try and help the battle. So he said, Hamir, you come now. Now Chahal by the time is badly injured, but he's hearing it on set. He said, oh, Hamir aa raha hai, jaldi aaya, bacha mere ko, that sort of. And they had conversations which are very touching. I am lucky that these transcripts are written.
Can you share some of the?
I really don't know. I have them with me, but I personally I can just tell you, basically telling each other कि यार आजा मेरे को जल्दी आप I'm bleeding, I'm dying. And my father is 3-4 hours away. And there's no way he can come because he is coming from the rear. So means rear से ऊपर से capture करके नीचे आना है. Impossible है. So he knows, he's just trying to keep him morale high कि आ रहा हूँ जल्दी आ रहा हूँ, कर रहा हूँ, कोशिश कर रहा हूँ पूरा. Couldn't do it.
But your father knew that he won't survive.
There's no way because he's bleeding badly in battle. And what has happened is in this chaos in the night, once the command and control goes, now the battle goes for 6 people. Some will, they don't know what's happening. People will tend to get back to the line. So a number of them were badly injured. All. अब वो वहाँ से पीछे से आ रहे हैं. So when he's coming on top, now you have in a company 3 platoons. So my father in the center, one on the left, one on the right. My father is behind the center because the platoon commanders are JCOs.
Yeah.
One was Dalal, center में Dalal, left में एक company, एक right में, and my father is behind because the company commander comes just behind the platoon. So when they're going up, started climbing up the mountain, the guy on the left, so far it is totally not known to the enemy पीछे से कोई आ रहा है.
Okay.
Total surprise because they didn't expect anyone. It's a tough, route. They start going up.
Right.
The guy on the left, unfortunately, he comes across a enemy position. It's a mortar position. So उसने, they saw each other at about 10 meters. That guy got worried. ये कौन है? So they started firing. The first time they fired, that's the only time that the Pakis came to know that there's someone behind you.
Okay.
Now they said, अरे हमारे पीछे कोई आ रहा है. Now all hell broke loose. Started bombarding these people. Now this guy who's fighting the battle, he stays there. The rest 2 are going up. They go up till about middle point. That was the objective. Now I told you that at the rear normally they would have a very low strength. तो उनके लिए कुछ उन्होंने एक प्लेटून में जैसे 30 आदमी होते हैं, 30 आदमी के लिए बंकर बना रखे. Now those by the time these guys reached there, वो खाली हो गए थे. They had run away. Those Pakis had run away. So these guys got into this. So 2 platoons go into the area meant for 1 platoon. So can you imagine 20 आदमी घुसे हुए हैं उस जगह में जहाँ पे बहुत कम लोगों की जगह है. And arty shelling is taking place.
Right.
You have to go into the rocks and all trying to. So a lot of casualties were taking place. Anyhow, they reached there. Now what happened was, it is again, I would say, a series of bad luck. The Pakistanis, the CO of that battalion, had coincidentally come the night previous just to be with the company commander of Daruchian, the Pakistani commander of Daruchian. So he happened to be there. And he saw this battle. So he was right on the spot. और हमारा CO पीछे थे. So he's on the spot helping direct. Now what happened, they had no reserves left. No reserves left. So what they did was, now उनका जो ट्वाइसी था, normally ट्वाइसी is the guy who's behind assisting, getting the rations, everything. So he, with whatever troops, he had some pioneer guys. So those pioneers को लेके, pioneers क्या होते हैं? The people who are experts in helping you make your defensive trenches. They are people who are good at हाथ का काम. मतलब माइन बनाना, कुछ बूबी ट्रैप करना, उस टाइप. They are not really trained as soldiers to fight. But he had no one. क्योंकि जो पूरी कंपनी में जितने थे उतने थे. And they were surrounded from this other side. So he got these chaps, pioneers, and he attacked on 14th morning. 13th night का battle चल रहा है. 14th morning he attacked. He also died. Oh, this guy was coming from the direction from which one of our own companies attacked. So my father thought कि they're coming there. So when they started walking from there, they said कि ये कोई आ रहा है उधर से, इससे कोई बात नहीं, ये तो अपने आदमी आ रहे हैं. Again they came close. Then they realized कि तो he's wearing khaki and you're wearing different. They again fight हुआ. That twice of Pakistan lost. He got a VRC equivalent from Pakistan Army. He fought a good battle and he died there. So now what has happened? They are there. सामने उनके enemy है. पीछे में जो counter attack किया था वो है. And next morning people started coming from the neighboring battalion. So there's a whole company coming. So now you are sitting on the feature and you look behind. जहाँ से आप आए हैं वहाँ से 120 आदमी आ रहे हैं. आप कितने आदमी हैं? बचे हैं अभी 50 people. Okay. And now battles are taking place. In that battle what happens is the officer with him, Dalal, he also died. Now only left is my father, his forward observation officer Gosai, and Taj Muhammad is the senior JCO. 3 of them left. another few hours, my father gets injured.
Right.
He gets, his right hand is badly wounded. He gets some bullets on his chest, now unusable. So he put a, tourniquet लगाया, यहाँ पे लगा के रख दिया. Now what is happening is another, I would say, a mistake. All the other companies have not succeeded. Things are going really bad for the unit. So CO says, Hamir, where are you? Hamir says, I've captured. He said, नहीं यार, हो नहीं सकता. He couldn't believe it. He said, तू बता location कहाँ है? He said, I'm sitting here. He said, no, fire a very light to confirm your location.
And there are 120 men coming from behind.
वो तो अगले दिन के, I have come back slightly. I'm talking about the night. ये जो मन तो morning की बात है. So I'm talking whatever the enemy didn't know that there's someone behind. एक तो वो थोड़ा बहुत battle हुआ, I told you that left platoon. अब second is the CO not believing that he's reached there. He said, यार तू बता अपनी position क्या है? So he had to fire that very light. Now when you fire very light, the enemy says, यार ये तो हमारा नहीं है. So obviously this is, so his position is absolutely known by the enemy. So all the artillery fire is being pumped onto him because now they know exactly where he is. So he shouldn't have asked. And my father said, no, I can't show you. He said, no, you tell me, because he didn't believe that he succeed. So he was
But why
very
didn't he
happy.
believe?
Things are going bad for him. I don't blame him because everywhere was lost, and there was no communication because a person who's going behind cannot speak up because then enemy will pick up. So he had gone absolutely silently behind. So he didn't really believe that he has reached there. And when he said that he's reached, he was so happy. He said, at least someone has succeeded. It was the only spark in that entire battle. So that happened. Now I'm talking about next morning. Now morning that he sees 120 guys coming behind. Now when they speak on the radio set, my father realizes that the brigade commander has taken over the battle. When the brigade commander takes over the battle, means that the CO has been said, you relax now. I don't trust you anymore. So he says, okay, now you attack this feature. From his position, which those trenches where they were, it was about 150 meters up. And it is a rocky, there are no bushes now. Bushes, jahan tak ye the, jahan bushes. Uske baad it's just a rocky type of face. You got to traverse this 150 yards to capture that position. अभी आपके पास हैं करीब 40-50 लोग बचे हैं, about 30-40 guys. So he says, okay, now brigade commander says, capture करो उसको. So he says, ठीक है, capture करेंगे. So he says, अभी हम क्या करेंगे? What we will do is, it's now morning about 11:30 in the AM. It's a daytime attack. Badly, situation's bad. He says, we will send aircraft to bombard this Daruchian top.
So air support is there now.
Air support will come. Now 150 yards आप दूर हैं. The plane's accuracy of those bombs is questionable. It's very difficult, a fast moving plane, to actually be able to hit. So actually, normally when you attack, you get covering fire from artillery and neighboring things. Now you're expecting the Air Force to give you that, which is unlikely. So when this happens, and if you read the book, you'll realize the people say, sir, ये क्या plan है? So there's no way we can do it. We're going to die. So my father said, ठीक है. I mean, a CO said, last man, last round. No questions asked, we'll do it. And his senior CO, Taj Mohammed, very good guy. He fought really hard the whole battle. And he says, कि साहब, ये क्या plan है? आपके तो पूरा हाथ बंधा हुआ है. What are you going to do? You're going with a danda for the battle. He says, if my company is going to attack with whatever left, I can't be sitting behind. Na? So I must go with the company. He says, आप ऐसा करना, you give me covering fire because there's no one else giving covering fire. You and Gosai stay here and I will attack with about 15-20 guys, and 20 guys, when I reach up, then you come up. Fire, one foot on the ground, one guy goes up, one goes, so these guys are behind. So now he starts going up. Abhi, I happened to get the Pakistani version of this. When someone read the book, they contacted a friend of mine and he gave me the information. When this attack took place finally, now the person sitting on top, he went in for something which is unusual, but is done sometimes.
This is Pakistani side?
Yeah. What happens is that you are in a bunker, right? So you're well protected. Now when the going gets really bad, you see people attacking you. This is the last 50 odd meters. You say, okay, fire on me. You tell your own guns, कि आप मेरे ऊपर ही fire करो. Because you are under. So the guy in the open is the enemy. That means India. So he called fire on himself, the company commander there.
Right.
And this officer who had gone, this Pakistani officer had gone to that place he was actually posted there in 73. So he says, when I went there, the same battalion was there. So I could get it from the horse's mouth. And he saw the log, he's an artillery officer. So he saw the logbooks of the number of rounds fired. There are 6 guns in a battery. So each gun had fired 200 rounds. So 120, each one had fired 200. So 1,200 rounds were fired. And that on that last charge of my father. And he says that the people told him that it was काफी पेड़ थे ऊपर. So ऊपर पेड़ थे. So when the shells hit the tree, the effect is like air burst. The most dangerous burst for a person of artillery fire is air burst.
Right.
Because it bursts on top and comes in shells. So the effect of those weapons or those rounds that they had were amplified by the trees.
Correct.
So there was hell of a lot of artillery sharing. So by the time these people, my father started going up, and my father, of course, was in his bandage. And I need to tell you this, that when this order came, I rewind back to like I told you, I am myself 4th generation also. So my grandfather had fought in the World War and in
I think
62.
he was also prisoner of war in Italy.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And he had, in many occasions, seen the behavior of people. So he had told my father one thing when he was going to battle. Bhi, jo bhi hai, I will be able to bear your loss. If you go, you go. But don't come back with, bejti. So he says, I will not be able to get disgrace. Agar aap bhage, so that is, ringing my father's. My grandfather was a senior officer. When he retired, he was a well-known person, did extremely well. So as a son, you want to prove to your father that I am as good as you. So in his back of his mind, he's saying ki yaar, jo bhi hai, mujhe karna hai. So he's attacking and there's heavy fire and all. And the blast, the RT shelling is so, and if you've got to be there to understand what RT shelling means. I mean, you have to be really a brave person to go through artillery shelling. And I'm telling you, this guy, I'm not saying, this is a Paki guy telling me that, they were firing almost 200 shells in that last half an hour, 1 hour battle. And airbursts. So by the time they reached, they were all, titter-bitter ho gaye. So my father, looking for his radio operator, looks behind, he can't find him. He sees the guy's dead behind him. And he's calling him. His name is a Muslim name. So he's saying so-and-so, so-and-so. Now the Muslim names are being said. You have come so close to the Pakistani defenses that the Pakis think that there's a Pakistani soldier calling for help. Because Muslim naam bol raha hai na wo. So Muslim naam bol raha hai, to wo kh raha hai ki yaar, ye to koi Pakistani, someone is in trouble. So he comes out, he sees my father. For a moment, he suddenly sees, ye to uniform dusri hai. He says, and they both start firing. Now he's firing from, let's say, about 15 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards. Then he's firing his gun. He fires 1 or 2 rounds, and luckily for him, the gun jams. So my father, the first burst he fired, missed my father. In that, hubbard hoti na, you're suddenly shocked, you see someone in front of you. Second time he's doing it, gets the weapon jams. And the officer, there's another JCO, someone, he touched, hey, kya kar raha hai? Don't you see this guy's got no weapon? My father's without a weapon. And he pushed. So that little thing, then they go to try and grab him. So when they jump on him, the suddenly guy sees his epaulets. He says, "Arey, aap to saab hai." So, it's an inbuilt thing. Officer, he gets a little, but he's chalo up. He picks him up and takes him because the firing is taking place, because the counterattack is taking place. I said, "Beeche se aa rahe hain." So there's firing. So he says, come inside the bunker. He takes my father into the bunker. And he's telling my father, "Dekho, samne aapke aadmi de ja rahe hain." They're already, going. Obviously, it's a terrible fight. So that's how he actually got captured. So it was a matter of chance that he was so close to the bunker, the Pakis thought it was someone. And I mean, obviously, you don't want to be captured, but then he was badly injured. He had nothing, no gun, nothing. Kuch nahi tha. So that's how he actually got captured that time.
So it was basically an unconventional plan and all the bad lucks that led to this moment.
And they did succeed. I mean, my father's company, that company succeeded. But then there's a limit to how much you are only about 40, 50 guys. And then the people coming 120 there and there's that one. So nothing left. And ultimately, both Taj Muhammad and Gosai lost their lives because they were surrounded, पीछे से आ रहे हैं लोग तो जो बचे बाकी तो सब मर गए थे उसमें से. And the guys who were injured and all, they were taken and captured. They became P.W s, all of them. So that's the time that he got captured. And then he was taken to a separate bunker. And they call it, we have a regimental aid post. This is a place where the first aid is done normally. So they took him to the enemy's RAP. And वहाँ पे soldiers जो counter attack किया था वो सब पड़े हैं, उनके Pakistani soldiers are lying there injured, and suddenly से Indian guy, he said मारो इसको क्या, why you get him? They get really angry with him because they have been fighting, killing each other. Yeah, so they have been killing each other night. So they get very angry like, तो क्यों इसको मारो, and then somehow that guy quiets them down, and then that company commander who was coming from Niche for the counter attack, he comes to my father. He says, "Can you walk?" He says, "Yeah, I can walk." He says, come with me. Here they'll kill you because the guys are getting very violent with him.
Okay.
And he walks him down and takes him down right behind, and then hands him over to the people to take him behind. And while going down, this guy asks him that, what's your name? So he says, my name is Hamir Singh. So he says, so you are a Sardar? You say, no, Sardar nahi. I'm a Rajput. So then he says, okay, I'm also I am Bhati. Bhatis
Bhati
were from
Rajputs, yeah.
Rajputs. So I am a Bhati Rajput converted, many generations back. And then he happily took him down. And so a series of, for my father, lucky breaks. He should have not been alive, but it so happened that it happened this way. And unfortunately, now the last that the people saw in the battle is him wounded, blooding, this, that, firing. So the information went that he's no more.
Okay.
So when it came back home to my mother, it was that missing, presumed dead. No one knew where he was. And it was really a bad time for my mother. Was a very young lady that time. She was hardly 24, 25. And in the Rajput societies at that time, if you become a widow, your life ends there. It's how it is in India. So it was a terrible time for her. And it obviously affected her. We were kids. We didn't really know much of what's happening. But terrible time for the family in general that time.
My God. But then, so from here, part 2 of the story in a matter starts, which is your father being in Pakistan for over a year. Let's take this moment by moment. So first he's captured over there, and this conversation happens with the CEO of the opponent side, of the enemy side. After that, what happens? What happens in this 1 year? Because an Indian is captured in Pakistan now for a civilian. It feels very scary. So for an army person, what actually happens?
See, actually, to be honest with you, he was reasonably lucky. He was reasonably well looked after. Why I say that is, firstly, because he was badly injured. And when he was taken back from there, wherever he went, the doctors did a good job. So he spent almost close to till 1st July 72, he was in the MH only in those places. So the number of series of operations and all, he was done, really treated well. The only thing which problem that he faced was because my father had just come back from abroad. We were in Nigeria for about 2.5 years. And he had come back from there. So the men knew that he's come from abroad. So in certain investigation or interrogations, they must have told कि साहब तो बाहर से आया है. And those days, there used to be a commando course in the US, Rangers course, which people used to go. And the Pakistanis knew that. So they had a feeling. And my father is quite a tough-looking guy, sportsman, 6 feet, muscular. And the sort of battle that he fought, they thought these are normally given to the commandos. So the impression went across that he's a commando.
Okay.
And because they thought he's a commando, he was always kept alone. Always, even toilet jaane ke liye, there would be guards with him. He couldn't even go to the loo alone. Wherever he went, he was totally, guarded and kept away from all other people. And for a very long time, when you are alone and you're not declared, you can be knocked off anytime. And it's happened. I mean, it's nothing new in battle that P.W.s have been shot. Even today you hear Ukraine, Russia and all that. So the fear was that they could anytime kill. And then he's a commando, they want to keep him. So he was virtually the last guy to be left from there. He was always kept isolation, always. That was a bit of a challenge for him. So otherwise, generally they were okay with him in the hospitals.
When someone from the Indian army is captured on the other side, what is the usual treatment that they get from the Pakistani army?
See, I can't talk about today. But in those days, I think, at least from what happened, it all dependent on the heat of the situation, the heat of the moment. So when the guy is captured, in the heat of the moment, you're so angry, anything can happen. But when it's also a fact that my father was saved because that officer, the chap telling you don't shoot him, he's already, that. So it is at that moment who's there, how he reacts. Whether it's an Indian or whether Pakistani, you really can't legislate as to how a person will react. Because उस time तो गुस्से में आप जो भी कर सकते हैं. But after that, once things have cooled down, generally people were following the norms of
Geneva Convention.
in the case of my father. Even if you see Gangaram Chaudhary, we were discussing earlier, and some other people, they were not very well treated.
Right, I've seen his interview where he's speaking about that he was badly beaten up and
so
everything.
I would say that I can't really say, I can only talk about my father's case. Maybe because he was injured badly, or maybe because of somehow they took to him for whatever reason, either because the way he fought, or whether he was badly injured, or whether he was I really don't know the reasons. But because of that, since आप already बंदा अगर आधा मरा हुआ है तो उसको कितना मारोगे आप? So and there's nothing much you can do, and he was not in a position at that time to be of any use to anyone because he was badly injured. So that it wasn't really, there was no ill treatment at that point. He was treated in the MH like any doctor would do. A doctor would professionally look after him, doctor would do. But in between, there would be cases when people would come and spit at him and this and that. That would be civilian janta, The Faujis,
not the army, the civilian.
In his case, the only problem was that they were very strict with him.
Okay.
You can't talk to him, you can't go to the toilet, you can't do this, you can't do that, and all that. But whenever he's transported from one place to the other, and the civilian came, the civilian crowd, they would say, Acha, Indian hai, they would spit and then throw, and then that would happen. But the army people would normally, follow it is in his case.
Right.
So I'm not talking about the heat of the moment. I'm talking about subsequently in that months. And
so largely the Geneva Convention, it's followed.
Also the fact is that there was a problem with the Pakistanis. They had many more soldiers in our camps, 90,000 odd people.
Correct.
So if you act tough with our guys, then you can well imagine what will happen that side. And when he was in the hospital, a number of Paki prisoners had come who had been released by India, had come to see how are the Pakis treating them. And when they met my father, they were very unhappy. They said, "Yaar, aapko to they're not giving paper bhi nahi rahe, radio bhi nahi de rahe, kuch bhi nahi de rahe, they're not giving you, keeping you isolated."
Yeah.
We had a good time in India.
Okay, so we were treating the prisoners quite well.
So this guy, I read in the book also, he says, he was very embarrassed. He said that he's not looking after, why is this being done to you? Whereas we were given, from day one, given newspapers and radios and all that. So in that sense, I think we were generally good to them. In my father's case, maybe because he was a commando, they felt something special or something. They didn't let him be. But in the hospital, no problem.
Yeah.
But he was a figure of curiosity. People would come, you've read it, you may have read in the book, come to someone would request, I want to meet him, I want to see what a Hindu looks like, or what, and that sort of curiosity, and people would keep coming in the window and looking at him and seeing, and they're saying, ye kaisa hai? And, people peering down the window, ki ek Indian Hindu pakda hua hai. Or kids would come and see him, those sort of things. But the people who were guarding him, who were responsible for him, and normally what happens is that the people who are looking after that are generally the older people who are not fit enough for battle. So the older guys, 40, 50, जो retired type के होंगे, so they are the guys there. So in that he found two types of people. जो Pathans थे, they were very good to him because they are large-hearted type of guys.
Pathans have that culture.
Culture. So they would say, आप जाओ अंदर, हम बाहर जाएंगे. The army people from Punjabi वाले जो थे, they were very strict with him. They would say, "Hello, mat." We will sit next to him, not let him move. They were not involved. They wouldn't take a chance. Those guys, Pathans, they were, and it so happened that one of the guys, who I also mentioned in the book, he saw my dad, and he had also served my grandfather in the World War. So when he saw my father, he saw some resemblance. He said, "Are you?" He said, "Aap kiske bete ho?" And then he realized my grandfather. He said, that guy tears started coming from his eyes. He said, "I can't believe this. This is because he was an old soldier."
Yeah.
So he became very fond of my father, and he would get him fruits and he would get him newspapers. And
Oh my God.
so that guy was, and he said that ab main yahan nahi aunga. I can't take this. I can't see you in such a situation. You know, I've been with your dad. That sort of thing.
This almost feels like a script of a film that
It is.
in World War II, your grandfather is over there.
Yeah.
There's a person who is in the Pakistani army right now.
And that time they were Indian army. You know.
Yeah,
So,
they are serving together.
Yeah.
And now your father is captured by
Yeah.
the Pakistani army, and this guy is
and
meeting
they
him.
had similar. My grandfather was actually in North Africa
Yeah,
and against Rommel's forces. You know, and they got captured there.
right.
And they spent almost 3 to 4 years in captivity, and they escaped and they got recaptured. And those days there's no communication, so everyone thought he gaye. And one fine day he appears in the village with his beard and all. They say he's jinda hai. So so in those times, all of them were together, and the army was not such a large army, and it so happened that this guy had served with him. So he was very touched. He refused to come again. He said, "Main iske baad, I will not take this duty. I will not come again for this duty." So he got him fruits and this that and that. So there were people like that.
Right.
There was another case, if you remember in this, that I mentioned that there was a JCO who was retiring. The MH ka jo senior most JCO tha, he was retiring. And he asked my dad, ki, if you don't mind, can I keep this book of yours? I want to keep it because I want to know Gita, in the camp, P.W. camp, you used to get parcels from India. So the parcels, मैं Gita भेजी. So he said, मेरे को Gita दे देंगे आप इसे ले लो आप.
A Muslim guy is asking this. Yeah.
He said, because we were also Hindus before. So I want my families to understand that this is what our culture was. So that was, and it was not very, partition was not very far away. 47, 71 is hardly 30 years. So there was a lot of camaraderie between the people.
It might not be the same today.
Today it's different because of, things have changed, generations have changed, the feelings are not the same. But that time, and it was an observation by my father that the lower the start of the people, the closer they were to you. And they would say, they would treat you no different. They became his friends, generator operator, ye wala, barber. They all became his friends because they said, yeah, कोई फर्क ही नहीं, आप और हमारे में क्या फर्क है?
Okay.
So they were really, and they would tell him कि साहब आप लोग जैसे officers होते हैं, हमारे पास भी होते हैं, हम भी जीत जाते. And in fact, they would say many things which I don't want to mention because they were very negative comments about their own country. I don't want to say it because I can't really prove it, but that's what my father says. But they were very unhappy with their own country that time because they said this is uncalled for, the war which took place and all that. It was actually for them. So it was quite an enjoyable experience with these people. This is in the MH. Then when he went to the P.W. camp, then things were a little different, but still they were generally okay.
So P.O.W. camp is that Lyallpur.
Lyallpur. Yeah, that is where they went. Because what happened is by about July, my father was the only chap in the hospital. And luckily for him, that time the Red Cross people had come to interview him. And when they interviewed him, that's the time my father realized that now they will not kill me.
Okay.
Because now that you're on record as a prisoner of war, they have to keep you they cannot kill you unless they show you as, died naturally or something. But he was quite certain that they will not kill me now. And he was the only one there and he's getting very bored because he was now accepting his hand. He could walk and he was everything. He's saying, yeah, kuch hai nahi, company kuch nahi hai. So he told them, please move me to the camp. So that's when he went to the P.W. camp and there he became the senior most officer there.
Right.
And वहाँ ठीक है मतलब जैसा था life था, but he would try and make it best out of it. And that's where I talk about that incident in that book where when he reached there, he didn't know कौन पकड़े गए थे. So there were people from his company and the Muslim company, so they were there captured. So one fine day, the captain साहब comes and says कि साहब today is Friday. He said, हाँ. वो जो they have gone to the mosque and वो कह रहे हैं कि हमारे कंपनी कमांडर साहब जब तक नहीं आएंगे हम नहीं जाएंगे. We will not offer our prayers. So he said, you want to go? He said, yeah, I'll go. So he said, but you are he said, so what? I'm a company commander. So he went there. Now this guy is told his camp commandant and everyone, they're all watching from behind. He goes and does what the Muslims do, wash your hands, आपने ये कुछ wash किया, सब कुछ किया, and you're doing the prayers and you can't make out कि so he was absolutely shocked. He said, it became thereafter they saw him with a different respect. They saw the army in a different, they had been brought up with different stories. But when they saw this, they said, yeah, this guy is almost a Muslim. So they were really taken aback with that. So uske baad thoda sa they started, giving him a little more respect and they treated him well. So it was generally, that was okay. And only thing was boredom and, whatever was there. But otherwise, and he was okay in the war, in the camp.
The Muslims in his company, they are also captured over there. How did the Pakistanis treat them? Because for them, I cannot even imagine like a Muslim on the Indian side and a Muslim on the Pakistani side. This Muslim is under that Muslim captured over there. So did they treat him differently? Did they treat him badly because he's a Muslim on the other side?
No. In fact, I would think, firstly, they were kept separately. All the Muslims were kept in a separate barrack.
Why is that?
I think, I can only, it's only conjecture, that they thought that they will try and, make them whatever little bit of, you want to convert them into something
okay.
pro.
Mm-hmm.
They thought that they will be able to change them. It actually didn't happen. It didn't work. They may have tried their best. They would give them different food because that halal vagara food vagara, and they tried to get them to do something different or to feel different. But hats off to those guys. They remained steadfast to their dedication to the nation. And there was absolutely no, because बाद में जब ईद वगैरह हुई, everyone, the whole camp celebrated Eid together, and that was the only time that Muslims and Indian, the other castes and the Muslims were allowed to meet.
Right.
And for the Pakis, it was something unusual that these guys are with such bonhomie, and there was no ill feelings that they're living separately, getting better treatment. They were getting better food, I suppose, because they need to have non-veg every day and all that, whatever. So when they actually met, they found that there was no one taking it amiss ki wo alag kyun hai, why this. That was the part which I think they found.
But at no point did the Pakistanis have any grudge against them?
Not that we knew of. I mean, they were not manhandled ki why are you fighting for India and all that. ऐसा कुछ नहीं था.
Okay, because they show this in the films.
That if that had happened, my father would have known, because in fact they would interact every time. On every Friday they would interact. There were no such complaints.
Okay. And your father met Captain Gangaram Chaudhary in the hospital?
In the hospital. That is when he was in the hospital. For one night, that's the time that he had met him there. And they clicked because they were both from Rajasthan and they had a good chat. But by the time the morning, he had been taken off. Like my father was never allowed to be with anyone else. He was always kept separately. So then he was maybe taken to the other ward. It was only that night when he had come, they spent few hours and they went off from there.
Okay. And your father returned to India after 1 year.
Yeah.
But you said that the news which came in was that either missing or dead.
That was for about 1 month.
1 month. How did that clear out?
That then after some time they announced the names.
Acha, okay.
And those names had actually been announced. They realized that he is in Pak captivity. It took almost a month.
Okay. So that 1 year, what was happening at your home? Because as you said, your mother was very young at that moment. So what was going on with her?
See, it affected us in the manner that my mother's father, my Nanaji, maternal grandfather, he was a police officer. And in the police, you get posted to districts. So he was posted to, and in junior rank, you get posted to a small district. So he was not even districts, I mean small towns, Lyallpur, Alwar, Jaisalmer. And if your husband dies, you have to be with your parents only. So she was with them initial 1 month. And I had begun speaking only in Nigeria. And I had a British accent. My teacher was a British there. I didn't know Hindi, a word of Hindi. And from there, I come to the schools in Lyallpur in 1970s. And so my education went for 6. I forgot English and became totally Hindi, which is okay. I mean, that's part of life. So educationally, it affected us, but the biggest person to suffer was my mother. And my elder brother knew a little bit more. So he would get nightmares and all that. I was actually quite oblivious. I was hardly five years or so. I was quite oblivious. My mother had a tough time because she was always worried that what happens if I become a widow. Because now that she knows he's alive, but will he come back? And there were 2 or 3 exchange of prisoners. He didn't come back. So they had given up hope ki pata nahi kab aayenge. And as you know, that there are even some 40, 50 odd, even till today. So you are never sure that they'll come back. And when you come back, you don't know what state, because you don't know. Everyone said he is badly injured. So no one knew whether kya haath pair hai ki nahi hai, kya, what is the situation that.
You told me that other soldiers on the Pakistani side, they came and told him that the war is over and
Yeah.
everything.
Not soldier. This is that Bengali
Okay,
chap.
right.
Yeah.
So he told him that the war is
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And once the 90,000 prisoners from the Pakistani side, they surrendered to India. I'm guessing that was the point wherein everything just automatically then stopped.
Yeah. So when the ceasefire took place and in Bangladesh, that's the time those people surrendered. So then the entire Eastern Army of they surrendered. They became a prisoner of war. And here there were some prisoners of war in the battle, the skirmishes that took place on the western border. There were some P.O.Ws,
Right.
and those were less in number. But in this camp, there were about 600 prisoners. But as far as Pakistani, the major prisoners were that's it. And I think once that prisoners were captured and they surrendered, then things became cool.
And what was the reason behind your father? I mean, why did the Pakistanis left him? Was it because we let the prisoners go?
No, I really don't know. Every time there was exchange, he was prepared. Sabko tayar ke liye. Like there was a number of guys. Surve was there and Gangaram Chaudhary. All these chaps. Everyone was prepared कि आपको जाना है. But morning में जब जाते हैं, then they say you stay back. Let's go. So I just think maybe because he was a command, they thought he's a commando. I just feel that. I really don't know this reason. We couldn't really find out why they kept him so long. I think maybe because he was the senior most, they thought maybe we'll keep him there, or maybe because he was a commando, or maybe because of, I really don't know the reasons really.
Yeah. And when he comes back after 1 year, you have written that when he comes back, there's media and everything, and he lifts you in his arms, and the media is telling him to do retakes and everything, which is particularly Indian media. But there's this one incident wherein an old person comes to him and he asks about his son, and your father tells him that he died in front of me.
This is something very clear in my memory because you know there's some things in your young days. Which
How old were you back then?
I'm 65 born, so I was 6 years.
Okay.
Almost 6.5, 7
Right.
years. And this scene I can never forget. I mean, Delhi Cantonment Station.
Yeah.
A big crowd there and this, that. And we find my father coming out. And like I said, this guy is saying, ki, uthao, usko uthao. My father, I can't, my hand is, badly injured. He said, 1 second utha lo. Ek liya, so then that is one incident. The second is that when my father is walking, there's this old, gaon se jo aate hain na, apne jaise that dress of gaon. And that guy comes and says, he catches my father, says, mera beta kahan hai? So my father said, aap kaun? He says that I am the son of Dalal. So he says, I'm sorry, he's no more. He said, nahi, ho hi nahi sakta. He couldn't have died. He says, I'm sorry, he's died. He said, nahi, मैंने गाँव में पूछा है, उन्होंने पंडित जी ने whatever, he said कि वो तो है जिंदा, अभी भी जिंदा है. My father can't tell him that he's died in front. He's his company officer, and they've buried him there. I mean, that's the thing. And unfortunately, even till today, he's shown as missing, presumed dead, because they didn't find his body,
Okay.
But he was actually in the battle there, and they didn't really bury him because this is the heat of the battle. This is the last stage of battle, that morning of 14th.
And this is on the other side.
Others behind.
Yeah.
He was with my father, na?
Yeah.
My father जो पीछे से आए थे, तो उसमें my father's alive, Gosai is alive, Taj Muhammad alive, but Dalal dies in that skirmish that is taking place. Now when he dies, they take his body and put him behind a bush so that at least बाद में इसको देखेंगे. That's the last.
But they are captured. Yeah.
And he's given this same information even to the people that when he did his debriefing. But somehow since they didn't see his body and there was no, the Pakis didn't say, I really don't know what happened to his body after that. Because maybe his clothes were torn, they wouldn't know whether he is an officer, kya hai, kuch nahi. But his father didn't believe it. And we had gone to Jaipur and I still remember him coming at least 2-3 times after that. He would come home and say, "Aap batao, tell me the true story." And my father, there's a limit of how much you can tell.
Yeah.
And even for my father, it was a very sad incident. I mean, losing a colleague in battle. So it was actually difficult.
When your father came back, we'll talk about the debriefing, but when he came back, and even when you were writing the book and you were having these conversations with him, it is one thing for an army person or the soldier to lose someone in the battle, but it is another thing to have lost the men and being captured and going through that whole trauma like scenario. What were the conversations you were
So,
having with your father?
Actually, you see, we don't talk about this much. There's the PTSD जो होता है, it's something which really affects, and I never knew it. It definitely affected my father a lot. See, my father, as it is a very silent person. Even anyone would say, तो ये हमेशा ही बोलते ही नहीं है, he hardly speaks. But then this, I think the effect of the war was that it made it even worse. So he would never tell us the story.
Was it because of the war or because he was POW?
I think it was a combination of his nature to
Okay.
be quiet. And in my side of the family, unfortunately, one of the reasons I wrote the book is that at least we should know the story.
Yeah, because
What
your
actually
grandfather-
happened.
Yeah.
Because none of us, it was not considered good to speak about yourself. क्या किया आपने?
Correct.
My grandfather in the 62 war, he was a brigadier. And again, 62 is a bad battle. I mean, we did badly. But in any book you read of 62 war, there's one person you will always hear good comments. That's my grandfather.
Yeah.
He was commanding an artillery unit without guns. Artillery brigade, there were no guns. So he was basically doing an infantry role.
Right.
But he never spoke about it. So you'll never find what he did, क्या जो पता लगा कि लोगों से पता लगा. So you naturally, it was not considered good form to speak about what you did. So he was actually naturally shy also. He would never speak. But then this thing, I think, affected him. Because I would never see him getting angry, but there were few occasions his anger would burst.
Sure.
And it affected him, maybe whether he sleepless nights or not, this, that, and definitely affected him. So he would never tell us. And he would never tell the story to us. It is only once in my life, when I was a young kid, he started off in the and those days we used to sleep outside in the, summers maybe we used to sleep outside because there were no coolers and all. So bahar चार पे लगा के सो जाते थे. So he started telling us a story at night and it finished in the morning at 3:34 in the morning. But I was a kid that time. So when I felt that we must write this book, then I requested my niece, you please record it. So luckily he recorded and my niece was too young to understand क्या बोल रहे हैं. So, but when I heard those recordings, it was really touching for me. Because some of the conversations, like the conversation between Dalal and him, with his men, with Taj Muhammad, these are, I mean, absolutely touching. Which you can only, when you read the story, you know, it's very touching. And I mean, you can't believe it. It's like you said, it sounds like a movie. And no one knew it. So he would never tell us. The only time I came to know, and in fact, in our family, people did. When I wrote the book, my family member said, "यार हम पता ही नहीं था, कभी बताया नहीं क्या हुआ है."
Correct.
No one knew what he did. So in that sense, a combination of PTSD and his nature affected him badly.
Right.
I can say it now. Even today, he's now 86-year-old. I do feel that even today it affects him. And I think by writing the book, I made it a little worse. I feel a little, because it rekindled those thoughts.
You've talked about this, that you feel guilty about
I feel
this.
guilty about that. But then I think it was well worth it because otherwise, kya pata lagega? Because I'm not talking about my dad.
Right.
My father,
About the
guys,
overall story
I
and
mean,
the other people.
no one knows about what Taj Muhammad did, what Gosai did. There was some more guys who mentioned, my father wrote there, he tried to write the citations.
In fact, I can tell you this from my personal observations, which I've had till now, is that a normal Indian civilian, he would never imagine that a Muslim from India fighting against a Pakistani Muslim. So this story also brings out that angle, and it is very important for the Indian society to understand that.
So in fact, when I wrote this book, it is for a couple of reasons. One of course, when I started writing this book, I had finished commanding a brigade. I was almost through commanding a division. And I found a lot of people, when you have discussions and preparation for battles, a lot of unconventional plans come and all that. And then since I've been brought up with these stories of my dad, my granddad, I tell them, don't do this. I mean, you be very sure what you're doing. So I wanted to bring home these lessons. So the book actually for the Fauji has got his lessons. But a large portion also is about the ethos of the army. So when you read about it, you understand, and I didn't want to make it when you write a military guy writes a book, it becomes very boring for someone. It's all about, technical things. So I tried to make it as simple language as possible so you can understand what's happened. You wouldn't have found it very difficult to understand what I'm saying. There's very little technical content. Because I wanted people to understand that what we go through, how people obey, you follow orders without listening, without, questioning it. Can you imagine being told that you go and attack and you say, I'll go attack, chalo, jaunga. What do you do? And this is not one case. There are thousands of cases in the country. And the problem is that you can't bring out all those cases. And it's even worse in losing battles. How many losing battles do we know about? No one's heard of it. You don't even talk about, because you only talk about success. Success has got many people who say, "Maine karaya hai." I would have been very happy had the CEO said, "It is my unconventional plan. I failed. My mistake. I take the onus for it." It didn't happen. So whatever he's written is justification for his actions. It just required one thing, कि मेरी गलती है, मैंने ये ठीक नहीं किया. He should have just owned up. I would have had nothing. That is my only grouse against him.
Yeah.
Because I would also make unconventional. I could be lucky, I could be unlucky. I could be a hero, I could be a zero. But if I become a zero because of my plan, I should get up and say, yes, मेरा गलती है, मैंने किया है. That is all that is required. Otherwise, I have no such problem.
Yeah. But coming to the debriefing part now, he has come back to India after 1 year, and now debriefing is supposed to take place. So I want you to explain a couple of things for our audience. Firstly, what is debriefing? Secondly, why are we having a conversation about debriefing? So you'll have to give the context of Brigadier Dalvi from 1962.
So whenever prisoners of war come back to the country, there's a feeling that they may have been ingrained by the enemy. You may have been, they would try to change your personality, make you do things which are different, because that is something which you always suspect. So there are two reasons. One is to see whether have you been ingrained by the enemy?
And what does ingrained mean? Does it mean that
वो उनका psychological warfare कि यार तुम
you have become their spy?
You are China अच्छा country है, तुम बेकार हो, और पाकिस्तानी अच्छा आदमी है, तुम बेकार हो. That's one part. So whether this guy's psychology has been changed, one reason. Second is to see whether you did anything wrong to become prisoner of war, because you can be looked at suspicion कि आप भाग गए, you've done something. And third thing is to fill in the blanks. There are many places there are blanks. In this particular case, we'll talk about it later. So you need to have some debriefing. Now, when debriefing takes place, you're kept separately. Say there are 30 people, you cannot discuss with each other. And there are different people doing it. So that you can corroborate कि जो बोल रहा है सच है कि नहीं. So everyone is briefed, and it is a painful process to get the entire story. What happened in 62 after they came back, it almost took a month, 2 months, which was actually very bad. So this was one of the complaints people had, and to explain, like you said, Brigadier Dalvi in this. And therefore, General Manekshaw said that I will not have such a debriefing. It should be short, swift, and fast. So that was one thing. Now, in this particular case, the debriefing became very important for two reasons. One is that the people who had fought the battle, there was no one left. No credible sources. And you could have Jawans, but Jawan doesn't know. He's just going, you have to go right, you have to go left, attack. He doesn't know what the plan is, what has happened, what is the failure.
all the officers had died?
So the officers who took part in the battle have died. The only person who's alive is the CO. And he's this side. Like I said, he's far behind. Now, the point I was trying to make, he should have just said, ki, yeah, meri galti hai, these are the mistakes I made. But the stories that were made from taking straws from this side was a very different picture. So there was a question mark as to, on the battalion itself, ki, yeah, ye battalion has done very badly in battle. They've lost so many. How can it happen? I mean, obviously, people were pointing fingers to them. So the army and such wanted to know actually hua kya. So that's when these people came. And when they came and they were debriefed, the men were debriefed separately, they found the actual story. And the version which had been given, because now 1 year had passed since the... So the version which had been recorded this side was absolutely different from what actually happened. And like we were discussing earlier, all the awards for bravery and all were given immediately after 71 and 72, 72 jab Republic Day hua, sabko award mil gaya. There are only very few people who got in 73. And they got, some of them, like my father and Gosai's case, they got it based on the debriefing done and by the reports of the men. So the men said, ki hamare sahab ne ye kiya, wo kiya, this did, we fought, he was injured, this, that, all. So based on that corroboration, the people who did the interrogation after they came back, they're the ones who then said these officers deserve to get awards. And this conversation of that officer after meeting my dad, he says, sir, you deserve a Paramveer Chakra. This sort of action no one would do. But you don't, you are a soldier, you're not bothered about what, you are just feeling that at least I have given the true picture, because what picture had come was very different. So that then they realized the mistakes that had been made in the plan, soldiers that fought really well. Some of the soldiers deserved awards, but not everyone can get awards. And that's how, in this particular case, this debriefing became very important. Because unfortunately, like we're discussing that no one wants to talk about defeats. That's a sad part.
Okay. And did you ever have a conversation with your father about Sam Manekshaw?
Accepting, not really about him as a person, because they were not really, they only met. One was when they reached Delhi Cant. He had come and promised them that we will not let the debriefing take place. And second time he met him during the award, when he got his, when Indira Gandhi gave him his Veer Chakra and all that time. That time he came and, he was friendly and और कोई ऐसी बात नहीं थी.
But in general, how big a deal was it for the army, like the complete army, to have someone like Sam Manekshaw at the top at that time?
See, I tell you what, when you are, we're talking about 70s. Today we have media and all that. The soldier on ground doesn't really know who is beyond his CO. He only knows कि मेरा company commander कौन है, and if he's company commander, CO कौन है, and if he's a little bit more, intelligent, maybe brigade commander कौन है. He's only concerned with that. So whether a chief comes, the only thing is if chief comes to visit, he says, so they don't, the men don't really get connected to it. The army runs on its own. It is after the war that we are obviously very proud of him. He's a fantastic person and a very good general. But on ground, the soldiers, whenever he would come, he would be giving them a lot of, motivation. He's a very motivating person. He was a very good motivating personality. So that would really pump the guys up. But those who didn't have a chance to interact with him, their concern is more to the company commander and the commanding officer, not beyond that. That's
okay. And I want to ask you this off the topic that when your father was captured, your grandfather was alive at that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, when they were repatriated, he was called there. My grandfather was quite a well-known personality at that time, so he was said, "You come." So he came to the border, and like I was mentioning in this book, when my father comes there, he is the first guy to cross because the senior most officer crosses first. So he crosses first, and there all the ministers and all that, their Chief Minister Punjab and all that, they were all hugging. And my grandfather's somewhere about 20-25 feet dur. He's watching him, and my father sees him, and then he goes to him. And his father asks him, "Ki, bhai, tere haath waat theek hai?" Because they thought ki his hand and all gone. So and father very, the relationships in those are very formal relations. He said, "Main theek hu, sab kuch theek hai." And thereafter he went off because he went off and they were taken for some reception to Amritsar and other things. So that interaction here, and he was alive. And it affected my grandfather because my grandfather, when he was in P.W, he was affected. Obviously your son is there and you're worried because you don't know what happened. Did he fight bravely and become, because his main concern was that badnami nahi honi chahiye. Of course you love your son, but the more important thing is that should I love my son for being a brave soldier, or will I be embarrassed by his being a P.W? Because being a P.W could be either way. It could be your mistake. It could be you may have just given up, or you could have fought valiantly. So it affected him, and otherwise he would have sleepless nights, and the responsibility of a widow in your family. So it affected him.
So this is why I asked you this question, because as civilians we at times don't understand what happens with the people who are in the army and their families. We generally don't have that idea because we have never had that conversations. And for you, so your grandfather was in the army, your father was in the army, you were in the army, now your son is in the army.
Great grandfather was also in the army.
Grandfather was
and
also.
Great grandfather was a soldier.
Okay, so
He was.
So
we are,
how many generations? This is 6th generation.
Indian army. I would say army wise, I am the 4th generation.
Yeah.
My 5th. But as a soldier, my great grandfather's father was the Kiladar of Kuchaman. Kuchaman is a small kingdom in Rajasthan. So he was we like to call him Supreme Commander of Kuchaman forces. So he was the Chief of Army Staff of Kuchaman.
Yeah.
So he was the first guy in the soldier line. But he was a king's soldier. Thereafter, my grandfather's father was in the cavalry, Jodhpur Lancers. My grandfather was in the artillery.
Right.
My father in the infantry. I'm in Armored Corps. My son is also in the Armored Corps.
Okay. So when this happens, what is the emotion in the family? Because you very well know what can happen in the army. Because you have been in those situations, you exactly know that how easy it is to take someone's life and to lose your own life on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
See, that is a question best asked to the ladies. But I can tell you this, that पहले तो communication था नहीं, letters ही होते थे, in those days. So at that time, even today, we all go with the hope of success. All is good. So I'm talking about till my mother. Going means जा रहे हैं, ठीक है, because 65 war भी किया, 71 भी किया, World War भी है, सब गए लड़ाई में आ गए वापस, that happened. So it was just another thing. And you hope that everything will be okay. Today's world is even more difficult. I was in the, in the valley for some time. Now you have communications. So but I was there, itna ज़्यादा communication नहीं था, but था communication. So your wife is hoping like hell, कोई call untoward time पे call आए ना. But you always think all is good. It's a tough life for the children and for the ladies. The lady has to be the brave one telling the kids everything is okay. That's a tough life for them. And whatever time, see, in the army, there's one unwritten rule. जो भी time आपके पास family के साथ है, enjoy it. Because you don't know when that will end. And that's true in life. I mean, anything can happen to anyone. But in the army specifically, because you are involved in such situations, and every day you read, kabhi yahan blast ho gaya, kabhi, especially when you are in J&K and areas in the such places. So today it's become much more difficult than earlier. Earlier they went and there's no news. ठीक है, अभी तो यार every day paper में मिल रहा है, कभी internet पे आ रहा है, कुछ ना कुछ हो रहा है.
And it makes you worry more.
It's really worried.
So thank you so much for this conversation and for bringing out the story of Brigadier Hamir Singh and also the story of Battle of Daruchian. I'm still taking the name incorrectly.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But thank you so much for bringing out this whole story, because I'm genuinely telling you, a person like me or any civilian for that matter, they get to hear the stories of the battles that we have won, but the battles that we have lost and the bravery that our soldiers have shown in those battles, it goes missing at times. So that's why very necessary.
Actually, what happens is that there's so many battles, and there's each battalion has got history of its own.
Yeah.
That there's so many guys doing such good jobs. I just hope that they can, at least people should, because like in this case, some guys have died. The family don't even know क्यों मरे, कैसे मरे, कैसे लड़ा. So through this book, I was hoping that at least those families know that their people fought really well.
Right.
Because how will Taj Muhammad's mother, father, or कि क्या हुआ उसका? How will Dalal's father know that क्या हुआ उनके? They just don't know.
Yeah.
So the idea was, because in the case of my father, it is yes, you made a gallantry, आपने citation दिया, you know exactly हुआ क्या है. But what about those guys जिनका citation ही नहीं है, वो तो बेचारे लड़े अच्छे लड़े, but they died.
Right.
So for them, that was the aim. That, and there's so many guys who die every day. There are so many people doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just hope that they get their time in the sun. It's not it's a difficult task to write such stories. The second thing is the ethos of the army, which I've tried to bring out in the book. I do hope people get a chance to read the book, and if they do, then it's easily available to be bought from Amazon or Flipkart or something. But if they do read it, it'll be interesting. And it's not a Fauji book.
Yeah.
It's not about technical details of the army and that sort. So that was a pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you, interacting with you, and I hope I'm not wasting your time.
No, sir, not at all. It was an honor to host you.
Thank you so much.
And it was an honor to get to know this story. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.